Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the beautiful Gigi, also known as Room for Scream. How you doing today?
Good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am so stoked to have you here. A friend of mine introduced me to you, and I knew right away you were somebody that I wanted to work with. So, before we talk about why you're here, Gigi, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You always had a love for horror movies and spooky stuff, but for a while you felt like you didn't fit in because you weren't spooky or Halloween 365 days a year, which we get. We totally understand that. But you still wanted an outlet to talk about your passion for horror, and that's when you went to TikTok, started doing movie reviews, niche independent reviews, stuff like that, trying to get those out there for people that maybe haven't seen them yet. So we know that it was uncomfortable at first. You're trying to figure out where you fit in at, but what gave you the desire to go, you know what? I want to start a platform on TikTok. I want to get some of these independent horror movies out there to people that may not have seen them before.
Well, kind of like what you said, like I just felt like I didn't quite fit in. Like I was like, okay, I love, horror. I love Halloween. It's not my total personality. So like I kind of try to make it my personality for a minute, like when I first joined like TikTok and Instagram, and it just exhausted me. So I ended up just kind of like not even paying attention to it. Like I would post a lot maybe during like, fall months, and then I would just kind of let it like fall behind because I was like, oh, well, people are going to figure out that I'm a fraud, like that I have other interests, or like that I don't, like have my house decorated for Halloween like all year long. And there's nothing wrong with that. That just wasn't like my personality every day. And so I was like, you know what? I didn't feel like people would really tune in if it was just horror movie talk, because I didn't feel like there was really a lot of that on Instagram. I didn't really utilize TikTok that much. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna totally be myself. I think that there are people out there that, watch horror movies or play horror games and stuff and still, have different interests, and it's not spooky or Halloween, 365. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to TikTok and I'm just gonna post, horror movie reviews and see what that gets me. And especially, I just had such an interest in like independent, like lesser known movies. And because everybody talked about like the big upcoming, blockbuster type of stuff. And I was like, I'm really interested in getting like names out there, movies out there that people don't know of. And I started doing that, and it just really took off. And a lot of like, filmmakers and directors and screenwriters like were reaching out to me, like, thank you for just posting that our movie exists. Even if you didn't like it, like, at least people know that it's out there. And it just really resonated with me. I loved that.
Well, and that's the thing about this community that's so awesome. Like, even if there's a film that we don't like and we do a review on it, we always tell people, go check it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're digesting this horror movie. You may taste it a little bit differently than what we did. So I don't want anyone to fail at anything. That's the saddest thing in the world to me. And like you said, I'm a huge baseball fan.
Yeah.
We all got to have our own passions too. Like, we love horror, we love the spooky stuff. My house isn't decorated for Halloween all year long, but like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. We each have our own passions and what we're into and what we love. Horror and baseball for me, they go together like peas and carrots. That's why
Yeah.
Night Swim wasn't as bad as everyone says it was.
That's
Um,
that's fair. That is fair.
but what I do love is at the beginning of this year, you started the watching every horror movie of 2024 challenge, which, like you said, a lot of the people that are reaching out to you saying, hey, thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting that out there. Watching every horror movie of 2024 is such a great idea. What gave you the inspiration for that?
Well, it kind of like towards the end of 2023, I like got on this random like obsessive mission where I was like, I really need to like, I just want to kind of curate a list of like every horror movie that's coming out, because I want to see what's out there. Like I was coming across movies that like nobody had heard of, or went like straight to like hoopla, like, and nobody knew what they were, and they were like low-key bangers. And I was like, okay, like I want to curate a list, and whether it's a good movie or not, at least I know that it's out there and I could give it a shot, or other people could give it a shot. And so I started kind of posting like, oh, horror movies released today. And then people would ask me like, well, did you watch this one? Like the poster looks cool, or the synopsis looks cool. And I was like, no, like, I haven't really got around to it. I'm rewatching my comfort movie for the fifth time, or like, I'm just I don't know, doing something else, or just kind of like what's ever like new and upcoming in theater. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch these movies so I can put it out there for people that are like, no matter how big or how small, should I watch this movie or was it good? Or at least one type of review. Like there are movies in this challenge where I am literally the only letterboxed review on it. And I'm like, hey, that's an accomplishment for me. So that's kind of why I started doing it.
And independent horror movies definitely have the fun aspect of it because they're not doing it for money, they're doing it for their love of the genre. Shameless plug, guys. Bride of the Killer Pinata, now streaming on Tubi. Make sure you're checking that out. There's this really handsome guy in that movie. He's a bodyguard. He's super hot looking dude. So make sure you're checking that out now.
I
But
gotta
in order
watch
for
that.
oh yeah, please do. I would love to get your opinion on it. Um, so to do all these things in horror, Gigi, which again, I gotta give you your kudos because when we're talking about independent horror films, a lot of people, like you said, they skip right over that. They go for the big blockbusters, which is also fine. We like to be entertained. We like to go sit in cinema and do that. But a lot of these independent people, they're really putting their heart and soul, and this might be the only chance they ever have to make a film. And so whether we love it, whether we hate it, give them their flowers. It's fucking really hard to make a movie. And, to be able to do what some of these independent filmmakers have done, blown me away in the last couple of years. Like The Dark and the Wicked, I've talked about a lot. That movie really means the world to me. A movie that is coming out later this year. It's called The Moor. Amazing,
Ugh,
amazing.
I watched it.
Did,
Beautiful, gorgeous, perfect. I loved it.
wasn't it awesome?
It's like I was blown away at that movie. It's so like my type of movie. I loved it.
Yes. It was so dark and the anxiety that came
Yes.
along with it. And yeah, Ashley, it's in my top three of the year.
Hmm.
Like that's how much I genuinely liked. I got little emo goosebumps right now hearing the fact that you liked it too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so glad that you did, and I can't wait till we can actually get an American release date. If you guys haven't, our review for it is up on the channel right now. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about the amazing Gigi, and we've been doing that. But the best way for you to become a part of that family as well is by following her on social media and all those links, TikTok, everything. It's all down in the description, guys. So make sure you're following, make sure you're liking, subscribing, whatever you got to do, go and do it. But in order for you to do these things, Gigi, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now
Yeah.
I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Gigi, your first horror movie was.
The Exorcist.
Now you guys might
So,
have heard of this little movie.
yeah.
Do you remember about how old you were when you had seen this for the first time?
I was really young. I was like, I want to say I was around 8 or 9. And like me and my cousins would go over to my grandparents a lot. Like that, she lived right down the street from us, and we were just like a very close family. And she had this like VHS cabinet. And I actually, behind me, I have like a little VHS collection, and some of the VHSs in her cabinet are here. I wish she would have kept the Exorcist one because that would have just been full circle. But like, me and my cousin, I have two older brothers too. So like, and all of my cousins are boys. So it was just like chasing this like scariness all the time. And like, I remember me and my cousin were there and we were like, let's sneak a scary movie from grandma's VHS cabinet. And of course, The Exorcist just looked the creepiest. I'm sure that there were other ones, but we were like, we heard stuff about it and we were like, let's watch it. And we put it on and I was like, traumatized when I was like 8, 9. Like it was so scary. I also like grew up Catholic. We like, we went to Catholic school. And so like seeing something that was so just opposite of what like I grew up with and was like taught, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to hell for watching this.
Well, I've talked about this before. Me watching this as a little boy, I didn't understand a lot of what was happening, especially with Reagan.
Hmm.
And as a little girl, I've talked to other females that watch this as a little girl. Especially 8, 9, 10, you're starting to discover yourself, and then you see like
Yeah.
certain scenes in this movie. I didn't get it. This I've talked about this before. I was very blessed growing up. My mom and dad, we owned a mom and pop video store, so I had movies at my disposal all the
That's
time. And
awesome.
my mom, this is the only movie she ever shut off. This was the only movie where she was like, nope, too much, and she shut it off. So there was always this stigma around The Exorcist. And you guys may be wondering why I'm talking about that because I want to know, Gigi, what was the scene? This is what we call a segue, guys.
Yeah.
What was the scene that affected you the most from The Exorcist?
It it was the crucifix scene, which like Because the bending backwards, like her kind of Reagan, doing her little spider crawl, that like freaked me out. But like the crucifix scene where she's taking it and jabbing it in herself, I was just like you said, like I was just like a little girl and like just discovering your body and like understanding even what that meant. And
Right.
I was just like, oh, it was just like beyond heinous to me. Cause it's like, at that age, like you're like your friends are starting to like talk about certain things or understand certain things. So you're like, oh, okay, this is what, it's like to make a baby, or this is what happens in this spot. And then like to watch this and be like, oh my God. And then also just like growing up Catholic, and I'm like, what am I watching? And then like, she turns her head like all the way around it. Like all of this combined, I was just like, I cannot even, like, my little tiny 9-year-old brain is exploding with like disbelief. I remember watching it from like the hallway. I couldn't even like be in the room. I was like creeping in the doorway because I was just like so overwhelmed with what I was witnessing.
And I didn't understand what was happening. I thought she was just stabbing herself.
Yeah.
As a kid, my mom shut it off, and I was like, "What? Jason does that shit all the time. Like, I don't know what you're mad about. Like, shit, whatever." Um, and then it's also, this is a different watch for me. Watching this as a kid, I'm like, "Fuck it, burn the house down." It's,
Yeah.
it's over. As the father of little girls now, I watch this, and it's a completely different feeling. And watching this as an adult, the scene that really fucks me up is when you see "Help Me" come across Reagan's stomach.
Oh,
Like, because at that moment, like, my little girl is still in there. Like,
yes.
this is not just this demon. My little girl's in there somewhere. What can I do to get my little girl back? And that's one of those moments to me that still, like, it's like Pet Cemetery, watching that as a kid versus watching that as a parent. The
Oh,
completely different
totally.
feelings you get. And that's why I love horror. We can watch these things at different ages and get fear from completely different spectrums. So, a dark question, because I really don't think there is one, but did you have a favorite scene from The Exorcist?
Um, it had to, honestly, I feel like it's the like bending backwards, like spider crawling thing. I feel like that's where my like biggest fear in horror movies is unnatural body movements. Like if that's in a horror movie, it's automatically scary to me. And I think that's what like sparked this fear of it. Because anytime it's in a movie, I'm like, oh, I cannot handle it. And I have watched The Exorcist several times, like throughout my life. And I just recently rewatched it when it released in theater. I think it was for like its 50th anniversary or 45th, I can't remember. But I watched it again, and still that scene, I'm like, "Oh, it just hits every time." So that's probably my favorite one.
So you talk about how you've seen The Exorcist so many times. Does it get funnier and funnier every time you see it, like Beetlejuice?
I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy.
Or
It really does. And it's a nice little like nostalgic love. I will always have love for that movie. I have my Exorcist shirt. I don't have very many like horror shirts, but
Mhm.
because I have to cut off like my collection somewhere. So I was like, but that's a shirt that I was like, I really need. And I watched it with my cousin when I was younger, and him and I were very, very close. Unfortunately, he unexpectedly passed like 2 years ago. And so we watched it when we were kids, and then we watched it again when we were like 13, 14, and we were like, what the hell were we scared of? Because it's just like so like cheesy, just what they were working with back then. And then I
Yeah,
watched it again, like, for its release, and I was like, oh, this movie's a lot slower than I remember, and then like a lot funnier with the delivery in certain parts. And so I'll always have love for it, but it does get a little comical at times.
right. Well, and we talk about, because The Exorcist is part of a bigger franchise now, and at the
Oh
time
yeah.
of recording, we officially have 6 movies in the franchise and a TV show. So since we are talking about a franchise, I do need to know, which Exorcist film is your favorite of the franchise?
Honestly, I haven't seen the other ones. So I've only seen the original, and then I saw the remake of it, which or like whatever just came out, The Exorcist Believer, the is it a
Prequel.
prequel or a requel or
Prequel.
something?
Yeah.
So I watched that and I didn't hate it as much as other people like were hating on it. I thought it was like it honestly was pretty good like for the first half of the movie. And then I think once they tried to tie in, everything to The Exorcist, I think that's when it kind of fell off because I just don't think that they really tied it up as nicely. I think if it was just a standalone movie and didn't have anything really to do with The Exorcist, I honestly think it would have been like a pretty decent watch. But I never saw 2 and 3, and everybody like I feel like everybody always talks about 3, like that's like one of their favorite ones. And I own them on VHS. So I'm always like, okay, I need to watch it. I need to watch it. But I've never gotten around to watching them. I think it was just like the first one held so much like love in my heart that I was like, I don't need to watch the others.
It's funny because to me, the first one is one of the scariest movies ever made. The second one is one of the worst movies ever made. And 3 is one of my favorite movies. Like,
Yeah.
it is so fucking good. And Brad Dourif's performance in that movie is chilling. Like, it is chilling. And it's got everything I love. Like, it's got slasher elements. It's a police procedural. It's got the possession parts. It really ties up. I watching 3, like I hated 2 the first time I seen it. Like I hated it. I was so pissed watching that movie. And then I watched 3, and 3 made me hate 2 even more because I never watched 3. I was like, no, I'm done with this franchise. I'm not
Yeah.
watching it. And then I watched 3 and I was like, this movie is so fucking good that it makes me hate 2 even more for existing because I didn't watch 3 because of 2. And 3 eliminates 2. It makes it so 2 never even happened. You could
Okay.
chronologically watch 1 right into 3 and it would make perfect sense. So
Okay, that's good to know.
if you get around to watching it, please text me. I would love to know what you think of The Exorcist 3 because I'm such a big fan of that movie. So
Yes, I
um
need to watch it. So many people like love it. They're like, it's probably like my favorite in like, the whole franchise. Like, yes, like 1 is like, the original and like, just of its own, but 3, like that's like a movie that they genuinely love. And so I need to get around to it.
and like I said, there's comedy bits to it that really land, not like unironically funny.
Yeah.
Like there's genuinely really funny moments in the movie. So yeah, it's very special to me. So when we're talking about horror movies, obviously, I want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. We talked
Okay.
about The Exorcist and what that movie means to you being your first horror movie. But here for a second, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
Yes.
Scary movie, Gigi. What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Of all time, gosh, that's so hard. People always ask me this. I'm always like, I just blank because I always say that like my favorite movie of all time, like forever and nothing will ever top it, is Jurassic Park. It will always and forever be my favorite. It does have horror elements, but I don't consider it like a horror movie. But like, I guess what my favorite horror movie, it would have to be between, uh, did you ever see The Orphanage, the Spanish movie, The Orphanage?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so it has to be between that movie and probably Trick or Treat. I'm definitely a big Trick or Treat fan. I have my little Sam's behind me. I just love Trick or Treat. It's just an annual rewatch for me. I am such like kind of going back to the beginning. I am such like I love Halloween. I love that feel of like fall, and that's just what Trick or Treat screams along with it being like an actual like good slasher and like kill scenes and just jarring. I it that's probably my favorite Trick or Treat.
I can hear all the Sledgehammer horror fans going, because I'm the only person on this fucking planet that does not like Trick or Treat. And I want
Really?
to, but it has every element that I like. Like, I love the slasher feel to it. I love the Halloween feel to it. I think Sam is brilliant. I love the idea of Sam, but I can't get into the movie. Like, and we watch it every Halloween. Me, my wife, my 2 daughters, every Halloween we watch it. My daughters we go to Spirit Halloween, they get their Sam suckers, they eat their
Yeah,
suckers while we watch it. And I'm always like, this is the year. This is the year I'm going to like this movie. And I'm sorely mistaken every year.
that is
But
so funny.
I know it's weird, and I want to like it. I really do. It's like Starbucks. Like I want to like
Yes,
you, but every time I take a drink, you taste like shit, so I can't like you. Um,
exactly. I have horror movies like that where I'm like, I get why people like it, or it has everything that I would like, but for some reason it just doesn't hit for me.
right, right, and that's Trick or Treat. And I do got to
Yeah.
say, I do disagree with you. I think Jurassic Park is totally a horror film.
Okay,
Um,
good.
for me, like I think like you talk about like the slasher elements, like when like you see the raptor in the window.
Yes.
or like when the raptor pops out from behind her. Like there's so many different horror. But I'm also one of those guys that thinks the Terminator is a slasher film.
Yeah, I
So
mean, like, but honestly, like when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, what makes that any different from, another, like you said, like another slasher or a creature feature? Like they're really, it's the same. And we consider creature features to be, just purely horror. So why not Jurassic Park? So
I remember
that'll forever.
when Jurassic Park came out, they had it on the cover of Fangoria, and people were pissed. And they're like, "It's a Spielberg." I was like, "Yeah, Spielberg also produced Poltergeist and did Jaws, man. Like, just because it's
Yeah.
mainstream doesn't mean it's not horror. You jackass.
Exactly. These like gatekeepers, I'm like, just let people live.
You mouth breather." Um, so anyway, like obviously, I've had an amazing time talking to you about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, and what these mean to you. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to The Exorcist, and what
Hmm.
we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, Gigi, we're not ranking this movie on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All
Okay.
we're doing is ranking this movie on how much it meant to you and how it affected you on your first viewing. So, zero skulls being not effective, five being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Gigi, what would your ranking of The Exorcist be?
Uh, Honestly, it would have to be Five Skulls. Like, it's just a movie that's stuck with me forever. And honestly, I am not a big person that like rewatches like a lot of like movies. It's like unless it's like maybe like a comfort movie like Scream or something, but I don't often rewatch a lot of horror unless I've completely forgotten it. And The Exorcist though, it's just all the components of when I watched it, who I watched it with, how it affected me. It's totally a five.
Yeah, I believe it. And I've had a lot of people that agree with that sentiment. So I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I want to remind you that we have all of Gigi's links down in the description. So please make sure you're following her. Make sure you're going over there, commenting on her stuff. Let her know she's appreciated here in the horror genre. So, Gigi, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple
Yeah.
more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps to bring up the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.